Hi there and welcome back to another episode at Station Road. Now today I'm actually just doing a quick follow-up on the Accurascale Class 55 Deltic. Now if anyone had watched the review that I did on this locomotive, and I'll once again say it was rather an extensive review, one of the issues I did encounter was the decoders that I had decided to test in the locomotive. And one of them was a DCC Concepts Zen Black decoder, and the other was a Dapol Imperium decoder. Now at the time, both these decoders lacked a little bit of ability in accessing all the lighting features on the Accurascale Class 55 Deltic. And of course in the instructions for this locomotive they do recommend using a lock sound or Lokpilot decoder. So I went ahead and ordered a Lokpilot decoder, and this is the item here. So it is version 5 and it turned up the other day. So essentially this video covers the installation of the Lokpilot decoder and testing out its functions and seeing if it can access all the myriad of lighting features within the locomotive. So I think without further ado, let's just get into what the outcome was. So if we take a look at the function map tab in JMRI, and this is on the Lokpilot decoder, and what I've actually had to do here is fiddle around and reassign some of the auxiliaries to the function buttons. So one of the issues that I actually found with the Lokpilot decoder straight out of the box is it actually assigned the red tail light or marker lights to bell and horn buttons, and unfortunately the horn button was a momentary button, and so of course the red lights wouldn't actually stay on. So what I actually did is I shifted those marker lights, the red marker lights, to F3 and F4. So originally they would have been F1 and F2, but under JMRI they come up as bell and horn. And then I did move the engine room light, which was down much further down in the function buttons, and pushed it up to F7. So the engine room is auxiliary 11, and then our cab lights are auxiliary 3 and 4. So we'll take a look at the other decoders shortly and compare the difference on the function map tab and actually show you sort of where I really got lost in terms of maybe trying to assign auxiliaries to functions when there simply just wasn't the option there, and possibly the option would have been available if I'd tinkered with CVs, but I think there could be issues there putting any other decoder in this locomotive bar the Lokpilot decoder. So if we bring in our JMRI throttle, and if we take a look at the lights, so if we switch our main light function on, and that of course illuminates the head code board, and of course if we flick directions that changes it to the other end of the locomotive. So here you can see where there's bell and horn, and these buttons here were actually assigned to the red marker lights, as I said, and the horn button was momentary, and I just gave up trying to figure out how to make that a lockable button. So theoretically these would be functions F1 and F2. So I shifted those to F3 and F4. So if we flick on F3, that brings on the red marker lights at end number 1, and then F4 brings them on at the other end. And the unique thing about this locomotive and the decoder of course is that these red marker lights are fully independent. So of course, you know, some other decoders, other locomotives of course in the past there used to be the issue of running a train and there was actually no way of disabling the red marker lights when it was a loaded train. So obviously in theory they're really only designed as if they're running light. So for example, I can actually switch both sets of marker lights on at the same time. So I think that possibly could be where the issue is with using any other kind of decoder that has less capability, is because they're completely independent auxiliaries, they're actually occupying button space or function space for when you get further down the track into the cab lighting and then of course into the engine room lighting. So our cab lights, I think reassigned these and shifted them to F5 and F6. So that is at end number 1 and then we've got end number 2. And then finally F7 is the engine room, and we finally have light in the engine room. So as with the other decoders that I tried, the DCC Concepts, I only got as far as directional lighting. I couldn't get the cab lighting to work or the engine room lighting to work. Then we moved to the Dapol Imperium decoder and we could get the cab lighting going, but we were still minus the engine room lighting. So with the Lokpilot decoder we now have everything, so all the available lighting is functional. So I've now got the Zen Black decoder installed in the locomotive temporarily, and under JMRI it's the Z218, which is a 21 pin decoder. And if we go to the function map tab here, now as you can see this is quite different to the Lokpilot function map tab. So we have white, yellow, green, purple. So essentially it's discovering or reading only 4 wires that are actually connected up to the chip. So of course the white and the yellow of course are the main directional lighting, and then the green and the purple are for the marker lights, the red marker lights, and that's it. There's nothing else. So unless there's a way that the CVs can be altered so that more options come up under the function map tab, in other words recognizing the additional lighting wires that are actually inside the locomotive. So we'll flick over to the Dapol decoder and it's different once again. So I've now got the Dapol Imperium decoder in the locomotive, and this is a bit of a weird one, this decoder actually, because it isn't actually detectable by JMRI. So I'm just running the read type from decoder button and it comes up with found MFG 154 Dapol limited version 5, no such decoder defined. So I did a bit of research and apparently the Dapol decoders are actually these, the LACE or LACE DCC decoders, which Dapol has simply rebranded, and it's a 6 function or 6 output decoder. So that took a little bit of sorting out to figure out who the actual manufacturer is of this decoder. So going into the program sheets, and if we go to function mapping on here, it's different again. Now we've now got some additional columns here. So we've now got the white and the yellow, we've got the green and the purple, and we've now got some pink and brown. So pink and brown are the cab lights. So the only thing missing off this is of course one more column for another wire, and of course we've got some pins associated with these as well. So in here should be the engine room light. So I'm only thinking that because the tail lights are actually occupying two independent wires here rather than being on one, which you might normally get, and then of course have to suffer the rear marker lights being on when you're running a full rake, but possibly that's the reason why. So the Dapol decoder gets close, but of course you're still missing the engine room lighting. And once again, as I mentioned, possibly I'm assuming that there is a way of fiddling with the CVs and creating an extra column here, or sort of remapping something, but going into the CVs and looking at this great big long list of items here. It's an area I don't really sort of want to get into too heavily. So that's the outcome for the DCC fitting of the Accurascale Class 55 Deltic, and in conclusion, obviously the Lokpilot decoder seems to be the only decoder that's going to work and give you all the full lighting functions that are required. And it kind of begs the question, and I think I mentioned this in the review itself, I really sort of feel like Accurascale could offer a DCC option but without sound. Not everyone wants sound, and unfortunately they're only offering two options, DC or DCC sound, and there's no middle of the road. And I noticed that they're doing the same thing with the Class 31s and other locomotives that are in the pipeline that are coming out. They're not offering just a simple DCC locomotive, and I really think they should, because it gives you another price point that people might be prepared to invest in. So there we have it. We have success with the Lokpilot decoder, and as I mentioned, I almost sort of feel like it would be nice if Accurascale could actually include that as an option in their Deltic fleet. So I guess the question I still have, and maybe you guys might be able to help me here, and that is there a way these other decoders can be used in this type of locomotive? Can we access all the lighting features? Now, if anyone out there has had a go at it, whether it's the DCC Concepts Zen Black decoder or the Dapol Imperium or any other 21 pin decoder, and whether they've been able to successfully access all the lighting features within the locomotive. It would be great to hear from you and find out what results you might have had. So that pretty much sums up this update for the Accurascale Class 55 Deltic DCC fitting. So I'll sign off for now. Do take care, look after yourselves, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will catch you next time. Bye for now.